One wine is probably enough. And I'm probably gonna leave the remote behind the camera this time. This is content that I don't really take seriously. It's just me yelling right now into a massive hole in a very small audience. But all of that said, I have some more heavy things coming up, but nothing nearly as heavy as what is going on right now. There are the Capitol riots. There's the GameStop fiasco. There's the COVID-19 pandemic that, we see the light at the end of the tunnel. Can we just get past that yet? Well, there are some people who don't want that to happen, but, that's not the biggest issue. As always, in Minnesota, it's the weather. People just can't stop talking about that. As of today, we've had a 9-day stretch of single-digit weather. And by single-digit, I mean single-digit in Fahrenheit, positive or negative. If I walked outside right now wearing this, I would die in about 45 minutes. If I wore a heavy jacket, I'd be okay for a few hours, and it would be painful. Which, by the way, if you have lived in the South and you walked outside in the heat, that's not nearly as painful as that. But yeah, we are going to have a 10-day streak of this. It could go into 11 in parts of the metro, maybe even the whole Minneapolis-St. Paul metropolitan area, which in Minnesota we just call the cities. And, it could be 12 days too if the forecast is revived down at the high temperature on Saturday, February 13th, 2021. I gotta keep following my own rules. So if there's a single digit day on 2021, February 13th, if that is the forecast and documented high, that would be an exceptionally long streak. Even though Minnesota's biggest criticism is being cold and extreme weather, this is not very common what is happening right now. I mean, it isn't a narrow range, but Minnesota okay, let me put it this way. In Savannah, Georgia, you have bugs. In Arizona, you have extreme heat. But, it's tolerable for the most part. In California, you have extreme heat in a forest with no rain. And we all know what happens when that happens. In Wyoming, there's lots of wind. And you have that in Colorado too. In Alaska, you have extreme cold. But in Minnesota, you don't just have any of these. You have all of them. In any given year, Minnesota can have temperatures lower than Antarctica. Wind chills lower than Antarctica. It can have the coldest temperature in the country. It can have the lowest wind chill in the entire country, sometimes including Alaska. We could have lower wind chills than Alaska at times. We can have the highest heat index too, but that's not the temperature. It doesn't get above 40 degrees Celsius very often. But it does certainly get, the heat index could get above Celsius, which is universally recognized as bad, really high. Well above the wet bulb temperature, the wet bulb survivability temperature. I just have to address the cold part. That seems to be the worst of the extremes, even now. Like I said, if I just took this hoodie off and went outside, I'd be dead in like 10, 15 15 minutes at most. It is that cold right now. But the record cold for Minnesota is, let me just get the calculator app out. The record cold for Minnesota is the unit converter, temperature. It is, and I'm gonna start with Fahrenheit. I am an American. I live in Minnesota, but I prioritize the system of international units because it's, I want more people outside the U.S. to watch this as well, if my audience ever does grow, but just having this yelling hole is good enough right now. The record coldest temperature in Minnesota is minus 51 degrees Celsius. In Fahrenheit, that is minus 60. That could, if you have exposed skin, that could kill you in 3 to 5 minutes, I think, maybe even less. That would kill car batteries in poorly insulated garages, or perfectly insulated garages, definitely. So yeah, winter tips. That's what I'm going to end this video with. You might need to run your car a bit more frequently than you actually drive it because the battery could die and it won't start. Even new batteries won't start when it's minus 51 degrees out. When snow covers your car, brush it off before you leave. You know, if you have a garage, leave the most used vehicles in the garage. Heat. In general, you want that to be where you feel comfortable. I mean, if you're closer to the window, no matter what, if it's really frigid, you're going to feel that. But if you're like upstairs, closer to the middle of your house, that's fine and dandy and comfortable. Bedrooms, bedrooms that want more heat, they could either leave the door open, but if you have people in your house that are like teenagers and they value their privacy a lot, if they want space heaters, just make sure you know all the safety stuff related to space heaters, that you're following them and that your kids are following them. Make sure they're mature enough to do all of that stuff. What else is there? This is just going to be a laundry list. This hoodie works from 0 to negative 10. From any cold to negative 10 Celsius. But below negative 10 Celsius, that's when you want the heavier coats and jackets. But this is coming from a cold tolerant perspective. Like, I'm really cold tolerant. I did physical work, but I unloaded a truck when it was like minus 20 Celsius without a jacket whatsoever. So I'm a little biased with that, but even if there isn't much snow, which Minnesota historically doesn't get much snow, it's just periods of time. Until the spring, which is like April here. Have enough of a coat to cover yourself. Not much snow, but very extremely frigid. That's the worst of the weather extremes. But, Minnesota also has the heat. It's possible for tornadoes. There have been some EF5 ones, but that only happens like a single-digit number of times a century. But even then, emergency alerts, have them enabled for tornadoes at the very least. And yeah, when it comes to your car, the actual system for brushing off your car is you start it, you leave it going, you have the fan on blast, and most of the year you want the fan on in your vehicle just so things don't fog up if it's an older car, not brand new treated windows. Uh, you have the car on, heater on blast, brush the snow off, make sure the head and tail lamps are clear. You go from the top and then the windows and then the rest of it. If you have an automatic starter, that alone will not get all of the snow and ice off, but it will help when you need it. With a fuel injector engine, you only need that running from 30 seconds to 2 minutes. That's enough time to warm up the engine itself. But yeah, again, make sure that whole thing is cleared off. You are legally required to do that, by the way. And when people don't clear the snow off the roof of their car, you can and will get a ticket, and people will be pissed at you. Turn on the car, heat on blast. If you have a rear window defroster, most cars do, turn that on. Wipe the snow off of the rear window anyway, if it's on there. And, once you're done with all of that, the engine will be warm enough for you to go. The clearing off your car takes it takes more than 2 minutes when you do that. It can take 5, but that's fine. Leaving that engine running and having the interior heating up is fine. In the past, you didn't have a remote start thing. You plugged in the car, but not to charge a battery that ran the car. No, you plugged in the car to an outlet so that you would have a series of heaters within the vehicle, instantly heating that thing up and instantly putting the snow off, instantly melting all the snow and ice. I think they still sell these, but the use of these isn't common anymore. Driving itself. In the end, don't go any faster than you're comfortable with. I could specify certain speeds, but there's really no point. It just, don't drive any faster than you're comfortable with. You're never in a big enough hurry to speed through slick roads. You just aren't. And the culture of Minnesota is, if you're a few minutes late because the roads were bad, people will understand. Don't put your life in danger. Don't put other people's lives in danger. And if that's not good enough, don't put your life in danger just to be someplace on time in the winter. And be Minnesota nice on the road as much as you can, because if you show aggression, if you are doing the flex thing, I like it, even though you see that, you yourself will see that all the time, because, Minnesota nice on the road is not really a thing in the cities. And when you're putting on your winter gear, it doesn't really matter what order, but the way except for gloves, that's really important. But the way I do it is, if it's really cold out, heavy coat, hat if there is no really thick hood, heavy coat, hat, shoes, and or boots, and then gloves. That is the last thing I will put on. I will put those on to clean the car off. I have a pair of gloves in the glove box to take out when I need to clear off the car. You always want to wear gloves when you're clearing snow off your car or scraping ice. And I have plenty of spares. I have one in the house. I have one in my work briefcase. Winter is bad here, but the worst thing, it's a lot worse than that. Any of these weather extremes, including the extreme frigid cold that's extremely painful and can kill you in very short periods of time, people who complain about it. very much have a love it or leave it attitude. I think a lot of the elderly have the financial resources to snowbird, but they decide not to because they don't have social connections in Florida. And no one should have social connections in Florida. It's Florida. But there are other warm parts of the country you can go to as well. Just don't do California either. Like you have Arizona, you have Texas, you have Georgia. You know, go to those places. Or even Kansas City, that's warmer and not Florida. And I've lived there. It's nice. They have Quick Trip, the greatest convenience store of all time. Not like Minnesota, not like Upper Midwest Quick Trip. No, the Quick Trip with a Q. They have that, and Kansas City has really good roads with no naturally occurring traffic congestion. If there's traffic congestion in Kansas City, it's because someone got in a wreck or there is road construction somewhere close to you. You know, and the Minnesota 511 app. If you see purple, travel not advised everywhere, don't go. Do whatever you can to not leave your house. It's not worth Nothing is worth killing yourself on slick ice roads. It just isn't. I mean, I personally don't do the ski trip stuff. I don't wear long johns. I don't have snow boots. There's really no point in having those snowshoe things. I just wear tennis shoes most of the time, but I have these thick socks. I almost always have these long black socks. There are thicker ones if I need them, you know. But, you know, winter is a thing that happens every year, and you gotta be prepared for this stuff happening. You gotta know in advance. And I had someone, you know, complain that they have to replace a lot of car batteries in this type of weather. But don't expect city dwellers anywhere to be that good with time management. And also, if it does something like go to minus 30 Celsius or even minus 25, it's, you know, that you can't anticipate and replace batteries fast enough. That's not normal human social behavior, even in rural areas. Now, there are newer cars, they tend to fare better, but as your car gets older, you know, just their odds of failure go up. But I'm going to leave you with this thought, you know, Teslas, smartphones, they are all batteries, but they can stay in frigid temperatures for hours or even days, and they will start. But gas engines with that lead acid thing, if it gets frigid and they're just left outside, they'll die. And if you have less than half a fuel tank, they could also die because of water going into the fuel tank. So, you know, having more than half of your tank full just makes sense year round for different reasons. In the winter, water going into the tank, and also, you know, if the tank is too low in warm weather, there are some things in gasoline that you don't want getting in your engine. Those tend to sink towards the bottom. Yeah. That is the crisis that is Minnesota weather, and it happens every year all the time. You know, I give you my tips on heat, but you know what to do. You just carry lots of water and drink it with you all the time, you know? That's the sort of state fair stuff you should know. But then again, normal years, Minnesota State Fair is not so hot that you have to drink water. You can just drink beer and you'll survive. Or wine, or alcohol and pop. I mean, it won't kill you, but, you know, water is good. It does help. You know, yeah. So that is what I have to say about the crisis that is Minnesota weather that happens all the time. And yet people still shout and complain about it. And I really don't get the whole sun thing either. Like, it's cloudy today. I don't have to put sunglasses on. I don't get blinded by looking up. I prefer overcast. Why don't you all do that? Like Seattle sounds great. It's clouds. You don't get blinded. You don't lose your retinas by looking the wrong direction. What is wrong with you people? You know, anywhere you live will have at least one weather extreme. And when I go anywhere else in the world, I can just say, you know, I lived in Minnesota, and I'll put on my resume, experienced all weather extremes possible. That is the Minnesota perspective on that, or at least it should be, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.
Is that all, Phil? We're good?